Welcome to a Christmas edition of Art for Advent. Over the 4 Sundays of Advent, we have looked at paintings of the Annunciation by Fra Angelico, Fra Filippo Lippi, Sandro Botticelli, and Leonardo da Vinci. This video ties the Art for Advent series together by exploring how these paintings of the Annunciation evidence some of the profound connections between Renaissance humanism and incarnational theology. These 15th century artists, working in the city of Florence, were part of the early Italian Renaissance. They were leading painters in an artistic revolution that included the development of perspective and pictorial narrative space. The philosophy of Renaissance humanism emphasized the spiritual importance of the individual person and a scientific investigation of the natural world. No artist better fulfills these ideas of the Renaissance than Leonardo da Vinci, and no single work is more often associated with humanism than his Vitruvian Man. While humanism found visual expression in the study of anatomy as well as in portraiture, it was more frequently expressed through images of sacred subjects. We can observe this in paintings of the Madonna and Child that depict them as particular persons. Incarnational humanism was often visualized in paintings of the Annunciation. Although depictions of the Annunciation can be found throughout the history of art, the Annunciation was a highly favored subject in early Italian Renaissance art. It should not surprise us that during a time when there was a renewed interest in the material world, that Christ's incarnation should be a popular subject in art. We can observe this impact of incarnational humanism by looking at how Christ was depicted in art before the Renaissance. We see this, for example, in the mosaic ceiling of the Florence Baptistry, which dates from around the second half of the 13th century. In this mosaic, Christ is seated in glory. He steps out of a circle, which may represent the realm of heaven, and into the viewer's own space. This mosaic impresses the viewer with the prospect of Christ's imminent return and judgment. This mosaic, which Leonardo could have seen in Florence, and his own drawing are separated by approximately 200 years. However, in a comparison of this depiction of Christ in majesty and Leonardo's Vitruvian Man, the similarities and differences are striking. The artistic and theological distance between these two works is covered in part by the paintings of the Annunciation by Angelico, Lippi, Botticelli, and Leonardo. Although we don't have time to fully explore all the rich, complex connections between Renaissance humanism and artistic representations of Christ's incarnation, these 4 Annunciations offer an overview of how incarnational humanism was given visual form. Painted between 1425 and 1428, Fra Angelico's Annunciation evidences the emergence of a Renaissance aesthetic. Compared with Leonardo's painting, Angelico's composition is pictorially flat. However, the illusion of space in this Annunciation is somewhat opened up by the presence of natural light. For example, in the room behind Mary, we see an area of light on the wall. This rectangle of light, entering through the window at the back and illuminating a patch on the wall, is one of the many details that situate this sacred narrative as an event unfolding in a space that seems to be connected to our own world. However, the principal drama in Fra Angelico's painting is not the natural light, but rather the supernatural light. This spiritual light is visually described by the rays of gold that emanate from the hands of God in the upper left corner. It is this divine light which unifies Angelico's composition. While the natural light creates the illusion of three-dimensional space within this Annunciation, The sacred light is the actor within that space. Fra Filippo Lippi was approximately a decade younger than Fra Angelico. Lippi's Annunciation, which was painted sometime between 1435 and 1440, more fully realizes the Renaissance aims of using natural light to expand the picture's illusion of space. Lippi's composition is organized by means of an intense natural light that enters from the left and fills the space. Notice the strong shadow that Gabriel casts on the floor. This shadow visually reinforces the physical solidity of the angel's form. Like Angelico, Lippi also employed rays of gold to visualize a divine light. And like Angelico, he depicts the Holy Spirit descending in the form of a dove. However, in Lippi's composition, this supernatural light has a more limited role. It is the natural light that illuminates Lippi's space, gives structure to the room, and organizes Lippi's composition. Sandro Botticelli was a generation younger than Fra Angelico and Fra Lippi. In fact, Botticelli was an apprentice in Lippi's workshop, where he learned strategies of depicting pictorial narrative space. Further developing Lippi's aesthetic of spiritual immediacy, Botticelli's Annunciation draws the viewer into the Virgin Mary's spiritual experience of becoming the Mother of Christ. In Botticelli's Cestello Annunciation, light has a less pronounced impact. His shadows are softer than those of Lippi. Botticelli's painting is notable for what is not present. The rays of golden supernatural light that we saw in Angelico and Lippi's paintings are gone. Instead, the Incarnation is more delicately suggested by the way in which natural light illuminates Mary and even highlights her womb. Although he was only around 7 years younger than Botticelli, Leonardo da Vinci seems to belong to an entirely new generation. His Annunciation both completes the evolution of 15th century art and suggests directions in which 16th century art might develop. Leonardo employs a technique called sfumato, which means smoky in Italian. This sfumato seems to visually envelop the whole painting. This atmospheric haze creates a perception that the entire subject has an overall singularity of light. The evenness of this tonal light both softens the edges of Leonardo's forms and visually unifies his composition. Using only natural light, and with no indication of supernatural light, Leonardo visualizes the Incarnation as the entrance of the invisible God into our own time and place. Looking at the treatment of natural and sometimes supernatural light in these 4 Annunciations, we have a brief and incomplete, but still useful, survey of early Renaissance Florentine painting. In Fra Angelico's Annunciation, the sacred and natural light have a reciprocating relationship. In Lippi's painting, the sacred light is present in a space that is defined by natural light. In Botticelli's Annunciation, the natural light has taken on the entire responsibility of visualizing the Incarnation. In Leonardo's painting, tonal light, or sfumato, creates the impression of natural space. However, Leonardo's Annunciation is no less sacred than Fra Angelico's painting. The artistic developments of increasing naturalism that we see in 15th century Florentine paintings of the Annunciation were motivated in part by an incarnational theology that emphasized God's entrance into the material world as the particular and physical person of Christ.